Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So the draft is now in the rearview mirror, and it is time to look forward to free agency in 2 days on July 1st. Guys are going to start signing pretty big deals in terms of unrestricted free agents, restricted free agents as well will be extending throughout the summer. So today, I wanted to kind of give my final predictions for what the remaining 2025 unrestricted and restricted free agents contracts will be. I've been doing this like the last every 2 months or so throughout the season. The numbers have fluctuated based on play, both in the regular season, in the playoffs. So yeah, let's go through it. First, I'm going to show the unrestricted and restricted free agents. Unrestricted is kind of ass, especially now that Mitch Marner is being rumored for a potential Vegas sign and trade. But yeah, we got Marner, Granlund, Ehlers, Claude Giroux actually just re-signed. Like, I haven't even refreshed this page. He signed 1 year, $2 million with a bunch of bonus money. Aaron Ekblad's going to get paid. He's actually the first guy that we're going to go over. Ivan Provorov, Gavrikov might get a is going to get a large deal. Dante Fabro also re-signed. That just hasn't gone through. Beauvillier, not going to be going through some of these guys, though. And then in terms of the restricted free agents, yeah, we're going to go through a decent amount of these guys. So up first, as I alluded to, we are going with Aaron Ekblad, and I'm going to say a 7-year deal at $8.5 million. I know that sounds absolutely insane, but I do think that he is going to hit the market. I'm sure Florida is offering him somewhere in like the low sevens, maybe even mid sevens. But based on reports, apparently there's going to be such a demand for a guy like Aaron Ekblad on the open market that even with the no state income tax difference, it is too much money to potentially pass up. So yeah, I think $8.5 million, especially after such a strong playoffs that he had, I would not want my New York Islanders nearly coming close to an Aaron Ekblad signing, even though we traded Noah Dobson away, considering the fact he's 28, 29 years old and has a lot of miles on his body. He has not been the same player since that 2022 injury. But I think he's going to get a huge bag. Next up, Nikolai Ehlers, 7 years, 8.5. At this point, he is the best winger on the market, but he is a little bit of an undersized guy that teams are not really going to covet as much as they probably should when this guy actually is given some ice time. He's an absolute beast, was around point per game this season, 63 points in 69 games. I predict right now that he ends up with the Carolina Hurricanes. Just seem like they have all the money in the world and could potentially offer him high eights, but I'm going to go 7 years, $8.5 million. Mitchy Marner, 4 years, $12.5 million. I think they're going to make the sign and trade work, considering the Vegas Golden Knights apparently are tampering with him, and the Toronto Maple Leafs are telling them, we're going to make the sign and trade happen, or else we're going to report you to the league office. I think it's around $12.5 million. That's around where Jack Eichel's extension is going to be, maybe even a little bit more because it's a year later, and Jack Eichel is the better player. So I think if it is in Vegas, no state income tax, I don't think it's going to be this $13.5 million contract. Marco Rossi, another undersized guy. I'm going to go 3 years, $5.25 million. The Marco Rossi deal has still not happened. A trade has not gone through, which makes me think I think he's just going to re-sign at a relatively low cap hit for the Minnesota Wild. I said this on the podcast a couple weeks back. The market just isn't really there for a Marco Rossi that is an undersized guy that has played with damn elite winger talent in Minnesota, where teams are not quite willing to give up solid assets, a solid roster player, and then on top of that, give him a 7-year deal at $7.5 million or something like that. So I think that Bill Guerin doesn't hate Marco Rossi. He just doesn't want him north of $6 million. So I think on some type of a bridge deal, if you're Marco Rossi, you can maybe take a 1 or 2 year deal, but you do want some kind of financial stability, $15 million guaranteed. So I'm going 3 years, $5.25 million. Patrick Kane, Showtime. I think what we're seeing with some of these other guys like Jamie Benn, Claude Giroux, Jonathan Toews, I'm going to go 1 year deal at $3 million, but has the potential to be another $2 to $3 million in terms of bonus money. I do expect him to re-sign with the Detroit Red Wings. Every indication, every report is leaning towards that way. It also took until the day of free agency, the day before free agency, to get a Kane re-signing in Detroit. I think it happens again. Loves playing with DeBrincat, and he's really found a home in Detroit. 1 year, $3 million base with a bunch of bonus money. Dylan Samberg, 6 years, $6.25 million. One of the most underrated defensemen, point blank period, in the NHL. One of the most underrated players, considering this year he was an analytical darling. He was actually second in terms of Evolving Hockey's WAR stat. Thomas Harley was first. That is definitely a flawed stat. I'm probably going to show the graphic right now. It's not the best, but this guy was a beast. And for the first time playing over 20 minutes a night, he should get more. This would be an amazing deal, especially after the Kevin Ball deal. That was 6 years at 5.35. I don't hate that deal by any means, but if Samberg gets locked up at this price, Winnipeg definitely should go a longer term deal with him to get the salary cap low. because this guy is their number 2 of the future. Although Neil Pionk got $7 million, he had a far longer track record and obviously was an unrestricted free agent. Samberg's a restricted free agent. So 6 years, $6.25 million. Ivan Provorov, I think he's probably going to leave the Columbus Blue Jackets at this point. I'm going to go 7-year deal at $7.5 million. Again, I don't want my team anywhere near this kind of contract, but what he offers to the table is a physical second pair, two-way defenseman, more so defensively. That is going to be coveted by some team that thinks we can get into the playoffs, we can have a wrecking ball like Ivan Provorov, maybe we can go on some kind of run. It's probably not going to work out, but when you look at guys like Brady Shea, Brandon Montour getting 7-year deals in the $7 million neighborhood, and I believe Provorov's a year or two younger than those guys relative to when they hit the market, Ivan Provorov is going to get a big contract. Brock Besser, 7 years, $8.2 million. Considering the wingers keep on falling off, just the overall players, Duchesne, Tavares, all re-signed. Brock Besser is one of the premier free agents in this class, and someone is, I don't think that this would be the horrendous deal because Besser is only 27, 28 years old and is a year removed from 40 goals. If he has a good center to play with, he can give you consistent 30 and 30, but yeah, I think at this point he is, if Mitch Marner's gone, he might be the top right winger remaining on the market, and someone's going to give him low $8 million. Gabe Valardi, restricted free agent, 5 years, $7.5 million. I think Winnipeg's going to go somewhere in terms of mid-range here, 3 to 5 years. Not sure they're going to go a full 8 years, but if I'm Valardi, I want like 8.5, which is the Hellebuck Scheifele number on some kind of 8-year deal, considering this guy's 26 years old, 27 goals, 34 assists, 61 points in 71 games last season, highly productive the prior year as well. If it's a long-term deal, it's going to be a decent amount of money. So I think for Valardi, it's probably going to be more so of a shorter-term deal, but still get some term in terms of 5 years. Vladislav Gavrikov, 7 years, $8 million. At this point, it's looking like a sure thing he's going to end up being a New York Ranger. And although I do like them targeting a legit top pair defenseman like a Gavrikov, he is 28, 29 years old, and this would be a decent price to pay for him, but he would be an upgrade over Keandre Miller if they trade him. He would be Adam Fox's best partner that he's ever played with, most likely. And considering the underlying numbers that he had this season, and at times was LA's number 1, especially when Drew Doughty was hurt, he's going to get paid a sizable amount. He's a guy that stock has absolutely shot up. You thought before the season he'd get like a 5x5, 5x6 from LA. When he leaves, which is very likely at this point, he is going to get a metric shit ton of money. Mikael Granlund, I still think that the Dallas Stars are somehow going to find a way to re-sign him. So I'm going a 4-year deal at $5 million around the Matt Duchene deal, but Matt Duchene's still getting buyout money, so it'll be a little bit more in terms of AAV, maybe even another year on top of that, a 5x5 to kind of have him retire as a Dallas Star. That Finn line was electric in terms of Rupe Hintz and Mikko Rantanen. They got to find a way to move out Matt Dumba, but I think Mikael Granlund will stay put in Dallas. Morgan Geekie, 5 years, $5.75 million. Granelli on the Spin and Chicklets podcast said, I saw a clip today of it, that they're negotiating a deal around 5 to 6 years, around $5.5 to $6 million. So I just penciled them in for that. When looking at Geekie, 33 goals this year, 57 points in 77 games. We can agree that he was a little bit of a Pasternak merchant, but at 26 years old, you get him on solid term as well as a solid AAV. And although he's not going to be a consistent 35-ish goal scorer, actually maybe he could be with Pasternak, but you know with the Pasternak tax, even still, he's a good 25 and 25 kind of guy, and a 5.75 for basically his entire prime would be a good contract by the Boston Bruins. Evan Bousard, 4 years, $10.25 million. When looking at Noah Dobson getting paid, Bouchard's getting at least $10 million, even on a 4-year deal, because he's just a better Noah Dobson, if we're going to be honest. Both players very inconsistent and make some dumb decisions, but what Bouchard has proven the last 2 regular seasons, as well as the last 2 playoffs, especially offensively, he's going to get paid a decent amount. Edmonton, they're still somewhat in a cap crunch. I know that they were able to dump Evander Kane, but then basically gave all that money to Trent Frederick on an 8-year deal. I think that they go a little bit shorter term to get the AAV lower, because on an 8-year deal, if I'm Bouchard, I'm asking for 11. I'm asking for 11.5, considering what I've done the last 2 years. So I think a 4-year deal makes sense for both parties. Bouchard, 29 years old, unrestricted free agent, can get an 8x12.5 by then, assuming the cap continues to rise. And the Edmonton Oilers get some solid salary cap, get $1 to $2 million less than they would have to pay on a long-term deal. And then once guys like Ekholm, R&H, Hyman are really up there in age and a lot cheaper, they're on very good deals, don't get me wrong, but cheaper in 4 years, then you give Bouchard the absolute bag. You kind of kick the can down the road in terms of the super big deal, but still 10.25 makes him a top 5 highest paid defenseman in the entire NHL. Brad Marchand, 4 years, $7.75 million. I think he's going to go to a team that's a playoff team, maybe not a high-end contender. I don't think that he's going to stay with the Florida Panthers, but he's going to want a bag, rightfully so, considering he was getting paid $6.1 million the last 8 years, and like 5 of those seasons, he was a top 15 player in the entire NHL. Get your bag. We saw Steven Stamkos, although Stamkos was 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 years younger when he signed relatively 4-year at $8 million, but he did not have the playoffs that Brad Marchand just had, and Marchand really is a good culture guy, of course, so I think a 4-year deal at 7.75. The New Jersey Devils are my team right now that I think is going to be all over Brad Marchand, and if somebody wants him, they're either going to have to go to 3 years at 8.5 or like 4 years at 7.5, 7.75. You're going to have to pay a decent amount because Brad Marchand, Hall of Famer, no doubt, just won the Stanley Cup. Not that he's solely going to prioritize money. Like, he's not going to the freaking Chicago Blackhawks. Now, Blackhawks have a good future, don't get me wrong, but he's not going to some team that's not going to be sniffing the playoffs for a while. But 7 years, or 4 years at $7.75 million. Alex Romanov, 4 years, $5.75 million. The Kevin Ball extension really threw in a loop for Romanov. I thought we could have locked him up on a 4 to 5 year deal at around $5 million. If I'm Romanov and Ball, who had a good season this year for Calgary, Romanov has had 2 to 3 good years on the island, and this year at times was our number 1 defenseman and played pretty good in that role, so he's going to want solid AAV. I wouldn't go long-term just because we just drafted Matthew Schaefer and Kashawn Aitchison, so 4 years, $5.75 million. You can move off that contract at any time, potentially, given what he brings two-way physicality. Solid deal for both parties. I would like that a decent amount. Mason McTavish, 3 years, $6 million. Verbeek seems to be more of a bridge guy compared to a long-term deal. You just signed Husso to a 2-year deal at $2.2 million. That absolutely blew my mind. I'm still reeling from that. But McTavish did not take a huge step this season, had 42 points in 64 games the prior year, 52 and 76 this year. So I'm not sure you're ready to give him some kind of like 8-year deal at $8 million or something like that. He's a very good player right now. 3 years, $6 million. If he does pop off, I think that they should try to extend Leo Carlsson this summer. But McTavish, the jury is still kind of out because he also is pretty bad defensively as a center. You hope that Quenneville can really get something out of him or continue to develop him as well. And then you lock him up down the line. But right now, I just would not do that personally. Lukasz Dostal on the other side, considering John Gibson just got traded, I would give him a 4-year deal at $5.5 million. He only has 1 year of track record, so I don't think that he can say, I want some $7-8 million after all those guys the last 2 years signed contracts within that range. But I think if you're Verbeek, you do give him some term. You clearly trust him a decent amount if you just shipped out Gibson. And 5.5 is a healthy AAV, and that would also walk him to unrestricted free agency. A 7-8 year deal would probably be $7-8 million. I'm not sure if I would do that for the Anaheim Ducks, but give him 4 to 5 years at solid starter money, and it'll look like nothing in no time. And then lastly, Luke Hughes, 3 years, $5.75 million. I think you bridge Luke Hughes. He was amazing down the stretch when Dougie Hamilton was out, 23 points in 24 games, finished with 44 and 71. But I think you kind of bridge him considering you got Palat contract coming off the books in 2 years. You got Hamilton coming off in 3 years, and then you give him some kind of big deal. He has not really proved enough, especially defensively, to give him like a deal that you gave his brother, 7 to 8 years at $7-8 million or something like that. So I think he's definitely a bridge candidate, especially considering New Jersey is trying to win now, might be going after a guy like Marchand that I just talked about. So keep the AAV relatively low. He has not quite proved enough for that long-term deal. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about these contracts? Which ones am I spot on about? Which ones are going to get way more money or way less money? I'll be seeing the next one. It's going to be a wild next 2 days. Peace.